You are listening to Curious Cat, a podcast that examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. And I'm your host, Jennifer Holtz. Join me every week as I examine what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. Thanks for joining us. This is our special Halloween episode. And this incredible story begins and ends with two amazing women, Sister Mary Irenita Zimmerman and Molly Hudson. Welcome to Curious Cat. Molly, how are you?
Thank you. I'm fantastic. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad you came onto the show for this special episode. So we're here today to share a ghost story that's still developing. It began with an episode of Curious Cat from season 1. It was the cemetery episode, number 14, I think. And I wanted to include, when I was making that episode, an interesting account from Fresno to surprise you, Molly. And I was hoping you'd never heard of the nun that was supposedly haunting a downtown cathedral. And that's how I stumbled into the story of Sister Mary Irenita Zimmerman. So some of the information I found out in the months since then is inaccurate, but we'll correct the record today. So here's what I said verbatim in that episode. So nobody has to go back and listen to it. St. John's Cathedral can be found in downtown downtown Fresno, and it's said to be haunted by Sister Irenita. She was a young nun that also worked to clean and mend garments and helped with the boarding school. She passed away at the age of 28 in service of the church, and she's been seen wandering the rectory ever since. Interestingly, a tree root in the cemetery actually broke through into Sister Irenita's grave, and she had to be disinterred. When this happened, her body had no signs of decay. She looked like she had only been buried for a couple of days. Okay, so take it from there, Molly. You listened to the episode, and then what happened next?
Well, then next I texted you and I said, I've been to that cathedral. Maybe I'll go again. And you're like, yes, please do. And that night, actually the next morning, early morning, I had a dream vision type thing where I felt like Sister Irenita came to me and spoke to me. And she said, I am unhappy. I am in a state of unrest. And she was very angry about the circumstances surrounding her death, which we've kind of talked about and such, but I think we're just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
So that really put it heavy on my heart that she needed help moving over, which is something I've done with others in the past. And the next couple of days I spent praying for her to move over and trying to get her to move on, but she was just so angry. She was not having it.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So after a few days of that, I was writing in my morning meditation that I do, and I write a letter to God and I ask him what he wants me to do for the day. And he was very specific about me going to St. John's Cathedral to see Irenita and to help her to move over, that I had to actually go there in person. And it was really clear in my writing. And sometimes when it's clear, it's still not something I want to do. So I did not want to. I had a lot to do that day. I was busy. It was hot. It's downtown. So I kind of begrudgingly went about my day and kept nagging me till I finally just surrendered around lunchtime, and I got in the car and drove down there.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And what day? It was early July, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was just a few days after that podcast. It was that Tuesday after. So it was the very beginning of July.
Okay.
So it was quite warm.
Oh, and then look at you, because you're like, okay, God told me to do this and it is scorching hot in Fresno, but I am going to do this. So what happened when you got there, when you arrived?
Well, when I arrived, I was surprised to see it surrounded, because I'd been there before. It was surrounded by these very tall, like ominous looking fences. And it was
Wow.
did not look like a welcoming cathedral that I've been to before. And I just felt an unease the minute I pulled up. But I was going to do my brave stuff and go in and do what was asked of me. And I went over to ring the bell and noticed that there was a note that said they were closed from 12 to 1. And of course, it was 12:15. So I was like, oh. Um, so I got back in the car and I really did not want to go in the church. I really did not feel welcomed. I didn't feel like I would be welcomed. I wasn't even sure they would allow me. So I decided to send you a picture to kind of make me accountable to stay and say, look where I am, but they're not open till 1. And as I sat in the car, I just had the windows open, and um, in my morning pages, it talked about, I would recognize her when I saw her, that I
Yeah.
would know when I saw her, and that I would just need to help her move over.
Wow.
So I was sitting in the car and I kept hearing somebody walking down the street behind me. And that continued like 3 or 4 times till I finally went, is that you, Irenita? Is this you? I didn't get an answer, but I got the feeling that it was her. Of course, later we discussed and come to find out she had originally haunted the area where the nuns lived, which was down around the corner from where I was parked. And then she had moved to the school and began haunting the school, which would be the direct path between the nuns' living quarters and the school.
That's what was incredible to me is that you and you can explain to people where you parked in relation to the church, but it made perfect sense because all of the accounts of her haunting were this rustling of the cloth, maybe of her habit as she was walking, and like the feeling that she was watching and almost like a judgment, or there was almost this kind of scrutiny feeling from people. But this walking up and this rustling of fabric. So it was very much, and we saw that after in that amazing Kings River Life article that we found. And the links will be in the show notes to that if people want to explore it. And that is like exactly your experience when you were there. And you didn't park right next to the church. You were across the street. Is that right?
Yeah, I had made a wrong turn going, and I went down S Street, which is where the original building was for the nuns to live in, and that had burnt down. I didn't know any of that at the time. So I ended up parking across the street by the school, not in front of the church. If I'd made the right turn, I would have been on the other side of the street.
Holy smokes. Okay, so then pick it up from there. Did you wait until 1 to get in the church? And I remember we were texting just to say that I was so worried that stay hydrated, keep drinking water. Are you okay? I was a little worried about you.
Yes, and I was so uncomfortable. I did not want to go in there. I felt sick to my stomach about it. It just was not going to happen naturally for me. I
Molly,
was gonna
even the
have to
sick
force
to your
myself.
even the sick to your stomach part makes so much sense right now. I never put
Right.
that together until this moment. Oh my goodness. Okay, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Okay, so it's nearing 1 o'clock and
Right.
stomach is not feeling well. It's hot. You don't feel invited to that church. It doesn't feel inviting at that moment, which is so strange because churches always have that very welcoming, warm feeling. So,
Yes, and I've never been felt that way about any church I've gone to ever in my entire life. I've always loved going to cathedrals.
yeah.
So I decided to drive around the block. I was getting really antsy and hot. So I wanted to just run the air conditioning. So I drove around the block and I pulled in on the other side of the street, and just, I couldn't do it. I was like, I'm not going in there. I'm just not going to do it. So at that time, I just prayed and I said, Irenita, it's time to move on. It's time to, I feel that her anger was towards the church. I don't know can't say exactly what they did, but I felt that anger was towards the church, and that the church was not actually God, that God loved her and wanted her to come home to him. And that her story was going to be told somehow. And I just said that little brief, and I drove the heck out of there. Like, and then I was so mad at myself because I'm like, I only had like 10 minutes left. So I called you.
I know. And we
Who
talked.
can I tell this story to? I can tell this story to Jim.
And you were telling me, and you were really angry with yourself, like somehow you had disappointed Sister Irenita, and I was just as mad about that, about you judging yourself, because I'm like, you listen to God's word. You went to that church, you sat through, and actually you were listening to your body, to your spiritual self, and that told you to leave. And we found out I was doing research as we were talking on the phone, and to find out we didn't know, was she buried there? Was she, what did they have a plaque that memorialized her there? We were just speculating. And then I was finding out, no, she was actually buried in a church that's called Cavalry Church, or Cavalry Cemetery in Fresno. And that's when we found out a little bit more about, not only was she buried, but she had asked and written a letter and given a stipend to Father Crowley, who was the head of St. John's Cathedral at the time, to have a mass said over her after she passed away. And that didn't happen at the exact time. We also found out that she died of a surgery in her abdomen, and we don't know the particulars of it. We have some hunches about it. Maybe the listeners will have hunches about it. We don't really want to go into that here because we just want her to rest in eternal peace, as with Father John J. Crowley. But she apparently, the mass was never said over her by Father Crowley. And I can explain that later, because he wasn't just like doing nothing. He was doing some serious work, and his area that he was in charge of is as large as the country of Ireland, where he came from. And so he, Fresno was the anchor of that. And so he was busy constantly in his car and constantly going from place to place to keep this sense of community and urgency about what he was doing. So then we also found out that, so she had this abdomen issue, she'd had this surgery, and she had died just a few days after that. And so for you to have like stomach pains, that just hit me today.
I hadn't thought about it either.
And with our conversation, I was looking out the window. I was sitting in the kitchen. I was looking at the window, and I saw this cloud in the shape of a cross. And we were talking about how all we wanted to do is shine a light on her life and say, we see you. We're sorry for what happened. God loves you all the time. And this cross-shaped cloud is out my window. And I was telling you, and our minds were blown. And then all of a sudden, part of it pulled off, and it was like the silhouette of a woman. And we just felt like she was free.
Definitely. I definitely got that sense. So it was like, okay, she's crossing over. I felt it right then. I mean, I just knew that I had done what I was asked to do. I didn't have to go in the church at the moment. I knew that.
And she was even saying, I don't want you to go to that church. I'm not there,
Right. Yeah.
And so it was really cool that you heard that. So after she passed away, and there's, we don't want to really go into it. People can do their own research, but there's conflicting reports about what her final, words were. But she passed away, and then she pretty quickly began to haunt all of the areas you were talking about. The boarding school, the nun, I don't know if it's called a rectory, the nunnery, I guess, and the church. And it happened for 5 years, I believe. And then there was this plumbing mishap in the church, because nothing is on accident, is what we're learning from her story. There was a plumbing mishap at the church, and when they were trying to clean up from it, the letter, the original letter that she wrote to Father Crowley with a stipend was found. And at the exact same time, her grave was targeted by vandals, and church officials had to go to Cavalry Cemetery to restore her grave. And that's when they found that she was in perfect condition. It was as if she had only just died. And this would have been justification like 10 years prior to put her forward for sainthood, but that wasn't what they were doing at that time anymore. And one other interesting note that I found during doing research was that the only apparent change to her body or the coffin was that the tree above, the roots had come to encircle her coffin and grew over her body, and that was it. So here she is in pristine condition. I mean, worthy of sainthood in like just 10 years prior. And the hauntings are occurring and her letter is found. So that was when Father Crowley was told about the letter. And again, he had a vast space that he had to look over. He was very important to the Catholic Church at the time. But in order to try to assuage her discontent spirit, he gave her a proper mass. So after that, did the hauntings continue, Molly?
Well, apparently the hauntings stopped after that 5-year period until 1986, which is when they started again, which happens to be the year I moved to Fresno, which was another surprise.
Why does this make me cry right now? Because that is so beautiful, because like God is in it for the long game, is what this story says. And he is so tender, and he sees the details of our life, and he knew it's like you're going to be there. And then fast forward to what, 2022, and you have brought peace to her. So that's amazing. So I wanted to tell people also, because I told you that Father Crowley he didn't not say her mass out of neglect. There were two things that happened, and I feel like it's important to read it because, again, this is something we found after your journey to the church. She died on August 5th. And he wrote, and this is again, 1931, folks. This is before the internet. It's before we were very good at getting mail across the country. So Father Crowley must have written, literally in the hours after her passing, this article that was published a week later out of the Denver Catholic Register. So that is a feat alone. But I'm going to read it because I think it's really important. His words show such love and tenderness. And then I'll tell you about what he was doing at the time briefly, because this story is about Sister Irenita, but their lives are intertwined. So he wrote, "A little nun was buried last week from St. John's Cathedral with a solemn mass. She would have been 28 if she had lived until this writing. She never taught class. Her task was to wash clothes, sweep floors, and mend torn and worn garments. Yet few sisters have been as deeply loved. Few had as wide an influence for good with those who knew her as boarders at St. Augustine's Academy. Her example and advice were largely responsible for at least 2 vocations to the Sisters of the Holy Cross. After her death, she had been in bed only 4 days after an operation. An autopsy revealed that she must have suffered excruciating pain during most of her life, yet not even her closest friends suspected this fact. She had been disowned by her mother and stepfather in her teens because she insisted upon practicing her religion. Informed just an hour or two before her flight to God that she was in danger of death, and asked if she were afraid, she replied, "Afraid? Why should I be afraid to meet my God? No, I am not afraid to die, but it is so lonely going out alone." During her days in Fresno, she had been noted for her devotion to Saint Joseph. His statue never lacked flowers from her hand. A moment before her death, and she was conscious to the last, her eyes open wide, and with a sweet smile she gazed into space, saying, "Why, here's Saint Joseph coming for me." Sister Irenita's name will live long, and we who knew her know that it is written large in the book of life. Good little Sister Irenita, we hope St. Joseph will come for us at the end as he came for you. I mean, that was so tenderly written and obviously sent off that day to be published. But he didn't do it out of neglect, the mass, I don't think. At first I was really angry with Sister or Father Crowley about that. But as I've come to learn about his life, he was doing work to restore the water rights of the Central Valley farmers, which had become destitute in the Owens Valley because they had dammed the rivers and the river and diverted the waters to Los Angeles that was just kind of coming, into its own. They needed water to support this city, but what it left is that whole valley destitute. So Father Crowley made it his life's work to turn attention to Owens Valley, and he did that in two ways, and which was pretty cool. He, at the time, especially, he brought people into Owens Valley and made it a tourist destination. And he brought Hollywood folks there to actually film as a location for a lot of those like Westerns that you've seen. And his final kind of piece de resistance was when he created this Wedding of the Waters, where it was this huge celebration, and all of it encompassed this vast amount of land that he had to oversee for the Catholic Church. And it went from the highest point in that North America, Mount Whitney, down to the very lowest area, which was the bad waters of Death Valley. And they, person by person, they transported a gourd of water from the lake in Mount Whitney down to the lowest area. And it was all sorts of people that brought them, like, Hollywood types. Everybody was significant to California history at the time. And then, and by bringing that attention there, and then locking himself into a room with a civil engineer to redesign a dam that would divert the water part to Owens Valley so they could restore their agriculture, and part to LA. That actually happened because of him. And so it was very important work. And he was constantly on the road. He came to be known as the Padre of the desert. And so he was like on the road all the time in this like very road-worn Model T is what I've read. And he died in September 1940 at the age of 48. He was actually en route to a small church to give an Easter service. And he was in Kern County when a steer, an actual cow that he had been concerned about because people had the open ranges without any sort of barrier between the freeway or the road and the ranch land. So a steer crossed the road, and to avoid a collision, Father Crowley, in order to avoid hitting the steer, he accidentally drove into the path of a truck, and he was hit and he was killed instantly. And it very quickly, that area, they put up a memorial there, and it's changed. It was actually, it's been torn down. It's been shot at. I mean, I don't think because of him as a person. It's just a standing in the middle of kind of an open space. But he has this memorial, and there's a group that's constantly like making sure it's okay and it's preserved. So you saw that memorial, didn't you, Molly? I mean,
Well,
not now, but like prior to all of this. So
yes.
tell us that story about the harrowing drive back in February.
So first of all, I do want to say that when you sent me the information about Father Crowley, as we were going back and forth that afternoon, and you sent me a picture of him, I kind of wanted to be mad at him too, because I felt like maybe he was the point of betrayal. Don't know what the point of betrayal was for Sister Irenita, but she definitely would. There was a point. And so I thought it was him, and I wanted to be mad at him. And I remember cooking dinner and getting this overwhelming sense of compassion for him. And feeling like I needed to say the same prayer for him that I had said for Irenita. So I did. And then I felt this relief that they both had now moved on, that there was this issue that was anchoring them to this world, and they needed to go where they belonged. So anyway, and then you sent me information about the memorial, and I looked at the picture of the memorial, and I went, oh my gosh, I've seen that. How could I have seen that? And so I looked where it was, and I was just blown away, because in February of 2022, before this all took place in July, I was driving home from LA, and the Grapevine closed, and then I was rediverted to go to Tehachapi, and then Tehachapi closed. So I was diverted out into the high desert, which took me right by that memorial. And I remember at the time being very upset and scared, because I was going out in the middle of nowhere, and it was taking me forever. It took me 6.5 hours to get home versus 3.5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember seeing a cross in the middle of nowhere and just going, thank you, God. I needed to see that. I need to know I'm on the right path, because I was not sure what was happening. I like to trust my GPS, but sometimes it's wrong. So anyway, I was just blown away that I had actually driven by that in February. And that's kind of where I think the story picked up for me, is that maybe Father Crowley picked it up and went with it there, that it was both of them that I was supposed to come in contact with and help them to both move over.
That's what's amazing, because then it was in May of the next year or the same year, it was just a few months later, that I was like preparing the cemetery episode, and I think I recorded it like May 14th, and so I must have been preparing it like early May, like after Mother's Day. And so it's crazy, and again, it's more proof that like the God is in the details, right? And it's just so amazing, because I didn't find it by happenstance, her story. And I feel bad that some of it was inaccurate, but we're correcting that now, because there was so much more to her. She never got to teach the kids. I think I said that she was a teacher. She never got to teach the kids. She was taking care of the garments more. And, and I think in that it said something about how she was like in charge of, it made it seem like she was an authority figure, because the first article I read about it was inaccurate, and that wasn't true. And as we've been diving down into it. So,
the other thing I wanted to say is that that day that I was really pushed to go, I could have gone on a different day that week, but I was just getting that push. That day was July 5th, and her death date was August 5th.
August 5th.
So to me, I felt like that 5th, going on the 5th was very important to her.
So there's your sense of urgency about that day. And you were writing your morning papers, and it's like, it has to be today. It's right. Inconvenient. It doesn't matter. It has to be today. So we both talked about our feelings on our heart, but do you feel that we've helped Sister Irenita and Father Crowley move on?
Yeah, absolutely. I knew that before this other stuff unfolded, that we found all these different connections. Mm-hmm. I knew that she had crossed over when you saw that cloud formation, and I knew when I talked to Father Crowley when I was making dinner that he was also passing over, and I'm not 100% sure whether he passed over or not. I think he may have when he died, and he just came back for her. It's kind of what I felt like. But yeah, that they were both at peace and happy.
I think also there's a message for us, and maybe for the listeners too, because we have had all of these synchronicities about, in regards to this. So I was looking at the flowers. There's a website called Find a Grave, which is incredible. And you can virtually visit their grave sites, both for Father Crowley and for Sister Irenita. And I'll put the links in the show notes if others want to go there and leave them a virtual flower. But one of the virtual flowers was left by somebody named Gary Erickson. And your maiden name is Erickson. My father, who is dear to both of us, is, Gary. And so it's like we've had like tons of these little things that have come up. And so it's hard to, even with them being at peace, she's been on our hearts, hasn't she? Because her death day was August 5th. And we've been texting about this story ever since it happened. And as things have come up, like these synchronicities, and we decided to get together and say a prayer for her on her death day.
It has been really, I mean, I really think that it continues to show up just as it did with the names the other day, to remind us. I think it's really important that they want their stories told in some way, shape, or form. He obviously got a lot more accolades and was well known better. A book was written about him. There's a California's Gold. But, she was the one that was overlooked in the situation. And maybe she was supposed to be a saint, but I just didn't get that was the deal either, that she just needed help. Someone needed to tell her that what happened to her wasn't done by God. It was done by man. Whether it was the church or the man or whatever, but that she could go back to trusting God, who she loves so very much.
Yeah. And he loves her to her, to her very soul bones. So I had a new development on August 14th.
Can't wait, because you wouldn't tell me.
I know it. I texted you that it happened, but I said, I'm not going to tell you until right now. The house is, I just feel like I need to tell you the ghost adventures kind of thing to this. The house was completely empty. Like everybody in the family is out of town right now, except for me. And the pets, I have 2 cats and a dog, and they are all accounted for, because immediately when I hear a noise in the house, I'm not thinking, oh, it must be a ghost, because I actually do all my kind of, my spiritual stuff so that my, home is protected and things. So I always assume it's just, oh, the cats did something awful. So it was 9:31 or 9:32 p.m. and I was in Doug's office and I was watching TV, and I heard this loud, like really weird noise. It was like a cat having a hairball, but really loud and kind of raucous. It was very odd. And it was undeniable. It was so loud. And I was watching a loud show, so I heard it over the top of that. So I looked down and there's cat number 1, cat number 2 next to me on the couch. Cooper's on the floor, my dog, on his dog mat. They haven't made a peep. So I'm like, okay, should I be afraid? Is somebody in the house? So I went upstairs to my art loft, which is right up the stairs from Doug's office. And there's this tiny little figurine that I have of a girl or a woman, and she's like in gold, white, and silver. And she usually sits in the middle of my dresser that has all my art supplies. She had been flung off that dresser, and she was in the middle of my art loft near this book that I had just received that morning of Father Crowley.
Oh my goodness.
And it's called The Desert Padre, and it's by Joan Brooks. And I want to read his story. I want to learn more about his life. And so it was like literally 1.5 feet away from there. And so then that was part 1. So then the next night, I didn't, I was kind of spookered by it, I thought about it. I thought, okay, is everybody okay with us telling the story, because we're planning to do this today? And I didn't feel like it was trying to impede us from telling this story. It just felt like it was something else. It didn't feel malicious at all. It was just like curious and sweet. So then the next night I was like, okay, what's going to happen today? And I couldn't tell you. I teased you, but I didn't tell you what it was. And then again, it was like at 9:31 or 9:32, depending on which clock I was looking at, there's another cathedral.
That's so crazy.
Upstairs in my art loft. And I'm like, what happened? And that's what got me reading his book, is like, did he die at 9:31 or 2? They say it was at 3 a.m. that he hit this steer, but that seems like odd timing. So anyway, I don't even know what to make of it. It happened. It's definitely connected, because the only change I've had in those last 2 days is that I received that book, and it's the final book. It's signed by the author, which is pretty cool, but there was only one copy that was available right now on Amazon, and I had just received it. And it was this
Yeah.
little figurine that's so pretty that you could almost think of as like a little Sister Irenita, the little nun, as he
Mhm.
described her in that tender obituary he wrote.
No, I really do believe that they've been in contact with us. And I was even writing this morning that I really wholly believe that they want this story told.
Oh, and you just reminded me, there was a part of this article that was, the one from the Denver Catholic Register. I thought it was so beautiful. It's going to be a little pause as I find it. So, Father Crowley talked about at the end of that article, and this was from Father Crowley. He was talking about, because we're not going to go into the speculation about Sister Irenita's last words because
Right.
conflicting reports, but he basically was telling the story about how he had some deathbed experiences that were unbelievable, about people seeing a blue light, and then right when they're about to pass, they said it's the Blessed Virgin. He had a priest uncle who had served God long and well, and the dying man was in and out of consciousness during the day, but knew us. The strange thing was that he talked as much to dead relatives who he said were at his bedside as he did to us. Did he really see them? Father Crowley questions. The writer believes he did. Maybe it's because we're Irish that we believe this, but it has always seemed to us rather to be expected that when people have lived close to the spiritual world all their lives, that world should manifest itself to them as the veil between time and eternity grows thin. And it's
Mhm.
exactly that. And doesn't that go hand in hand with what you just said about your morning papers?
Yeah, no, I believe the veil is very, very thin. And I think since I was a young child, I could see past that veil frequently. And I don't even question it anymore when it happens. It was big. This is a lot. This is a big ask.
Yeah, it's undeniable. It's really crazy because just to you know, reflect on your story. This goes back to, Sister Irenita in 1931, her passing, but then, you know, you moving to Fresno in 1986 and the hauntings resumed. And now doesn't it make sense? People said that her hauntings felt like she was judging or skeptical or angry. Well, she was just angry because she hadn't been seen or heard. And, she was so young when her life was over, and she had so much to give, so much love of God to give and share to other people. And I think that that's what's beautiful about telling her story today, is because I think that they're going to have people that are listening that have the goosebumps too. And they're like drawn to God through her story.
And most of what we've learned, like 99% of it, we learned after I went down to the church. It was just that little blurb, and we didn't learn all of this. And so it's amazing how it continues to point us in the direction of that was really what happened.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I wanted to say to you, Molly, have such a gift to listen to God and to obey him. Because for me, he has to hit me over the head with a megaphone like 10 times. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to do this. I don't want to do this. And he's like banging me over the head. So I'm in awe of you.
Oh, you're sweet.
And I hope you'll come back to Curious Cat again.
Oh, I have plenty of good stories. So yes, I would love to. And I love, love, love your podcast as much as I love you. It's just an amazing, you're helping a lot of people.
I hope
You're
so.
bringing forth things that people probably don't talk about, and, have those feelings or have those sensations, and they don't know how to follow them. So I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. Well, that's my megaphone, God with the megaphone saying, oh, your voice, you were bullied for your voice as a kid, but you're
Yes.
going to use it to help people because they need to feel not afraid, and to see that I'm everything and they are, a part of, I'm a part of everything. So anyway, it's about reclaiming that power and that kind of sense of the spiritual in everyday life. So I hope it does help people. Thank you for listening to Curious Cat. If you like the content, stories, and information, I'd be grateful if you could like and review us on your favorite streaming service. It will help others find us as well. Huge gratitude for my art director and audio engineer, If you're in need of those services, please find their links in the show notes. Also, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious and love you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Hotz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Hotz, spelled HOTES.com.